Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
A young half-naked cheerleader teases her boyfriend by bouncing on a trampoline. Halfway through, her boyfriend is yanked off screen, and her mid-air split ends with an intimate impaling of a sharpened blade. A student in a varsity jacket being pleased by his girlfriend gets decapitated, as with a loud gulp she screams in fear his head rolls down the windshield of his car. A man in full pilgrim outfit terrorizes a family at a Thanksgiving dinner by displaying a fully roasted human being and then copulating with a turkey attached to a human head. These are things promised but not actually in the new film by Eli Roth, Thanksgiving. Written by Jeff Rendell and Roth, Thanksgiving is a culmination of 20 years of creating a potential holiday horror franchise by the cult auteur. Its first incarnation as a phony and extremely graphic trailer played through the experimental and doomed double feature Grindhouse by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Times have changed, and while the explicit trailer reveled in hideously graphic violence and bawdy sexual gags, the feature itself, made 16 years later, must contend with a scrubbing of sorts. In opposition of its original 80s set trailer, including dirty and cracked film reels, chugging keyboard soundtrack, and bad audio, we're given a clean, updated setting, social media being a giant propellant of the story and sleek visuals. It's clean for today's audiences, sanitized. Even in the age of Terrifier films, corporate studios will not let ultraviolence fly and possibly affect their money. Roth has had a long storied career that began with horror. The incredibly crowd-pleasing Hostel, a personal fave, showed great potential, being his second film after cult classic Cabin Fever. Roth eventually fumbled by making Hostel 2 that was so poorly received he was taken off adapting Stephen King's Cell, which eventually was directed by someone else into a horror straight-to-video piece of crap. Roth found his way producing for a while until he directed an undercooked cannibal holocaust like Green Inferno. Also, Anna de Armas' jumping-off vehicle of Knock Knock, and the bizarrely controversial remake of Death Wish. Eventually, Roth did score with general audiences, directing The House with the Clock on its Wall, and the video game adaptation Borderlands. Those last two features are very mainstream, and I think directly affect his work on Thanksgiving. I believe he doesn't want to tarnish the new goodwill his pseudo-friendly family appeal, but he wants to honor his horror roots by finally making the film he and Rendell wished to make so many years ago. The difference is, he simply cannot do the film like the original trailer with studio's money. Terrifier is an amateurishly directed series of movies, but are incredibly fun and gory. That's what was so endearing and naughty about the faux Thanksgiving short. It promised a balls-out horror splatterfest, and what we get now many years later is the cable television standard slasher. It's to be understood that if the film aligned to its original vision, it would likely turn off newer generations who don't understand the nostalgia of poor editing, bad quality video, and extreme violence. What we're left off with now is an updating to include viral videos and Black Friday chaos. To start the film off, a siege at Walmart-esque store leads to several deaths. An important note being a Gina Gershon as Amanda Collins' death by shopping cart. Side note, I actually met Miss Gershon a long time ago when she asked me to help her find some gloves she left in her room. I did so, and not only was she such a nice person, she's incredibly hot. I mean, no offense to anyone to make them feel uncomfortable in saying that, but she is fine. Back to the film, we are dealing with a fallout a year later. Lead Neil Verlaque plays Jessica, the daughter of the man who owns the store. They're incredibly well off, and the circle of friends are basically jocks and popular kids. She's broken up with her previous boyfriend, Bobby, played by Jalen Thomas Brooks, after he received a sports career-ending injury during the chaos. She's moved on to human blank slate Ryan, played by Milo Mannheim. The rest of the crew are played by TikTok stars and the like. I listened to a podcast interview with Roth, and he twisted himself into a pretzel trying to explain why he toned down the gore instead of saying studio interference. And he also added that he wanted to make sure that the characters had complete depth like a John Hughes films, which is complete malarkey. I couldn't remember anyone's name besides the John Carver moniker the killer used. Speaking of, the killer, while effective, also is a bit bland, which is really a letdown. Their mask, which is a Halloween-style Old English art mock-up, is fine, but their plain black suit, which looks like jogging clothes, does not make it look cool. Understandably, this is probably a real person who can't run around and put on a pilgrim clothing at the same time. Still, make the killer look interesting. The other side of the coin are the adults. Sheriff Eric Newland, played by Patrick Dempsey, an actor I'm aware of but never really thought of anything he was in besides Scream 3, the Scream movie I disliked, but apparently I'm in the minority on that. He does a very good job as the caring, wicked, sharp sheriff looking to protect his town. Rick Hoffman, playing Thomas, the lead's father, is always great in anything that he does. One of those that guy actors that makes every film better, though there's not enough of him in this. The rest of the adults are cannon fodder and red herrings. As for the film itself, it's sleek, well done, feels like a movie unearthed from a 90s crypt. Not full of current pop culture besides the whole social media nonsense, which is actually important to the killer's MO. I think the cast is fine for the most part. I really honestly did not care for anyone in this movie to survive the ordeal. I was still let down that minute by minute as the film carried on, the ghoulishly violent material I saw in the original trailer was not going to make it on screen. Several sequences in the film are very much reenacted, but not as faithfully as, say, the Machete film was to its Grindhouse trailer, but close enough. With the heavy sexual themes completely wiped out, sure, the cheerleader removes her panties as she hops on a trampoline, but the violent sexual imagery of the thrusting accidentally onto a knife is gone. The crowning achievement of the trailer, a gasp-inducing moment. It's now more of an inoffensive death by a thousand's cut. Now, I'm not here advocating violence towards women for the sake of it, that, creeps jack off to. They can go watch garbage like Laid to Rest to go see that. But it's the fact that the original material is cleaned up. That's the problem. Shock people. Give them something to talk about. Even the cooked human, who was actually male in the original, naked and steaming, is turned into a woman we as an audience are supposed to hate but really don't care either way what happens to her, is fully dressed up and there's no turkey humping at all. In fact, the dinner scene with the tied-up guests pretty much promises more than it delivers by actually going elsewhere mid-scene. The tenderizer sequence being the most graphic kill alongside a boat ramming its bow through a human head. There is actually gore in here, and it's quick and nasty, but none of it has the grisly fun of the original short movie. I won't give away the killer's reasoning because I think for what it's worth, the movie is a fine time travel to 2000s horror. I think the reasoning is a little too human, which can limit a slasher's repeat offenses for sequels, but it's a decent take and makes sense. The red herrings are a bit obvious throughout the film. I understand Roth tried to soften the edges with his dream picture, but those who wanted the disgusting and depraved movie they were promised have to look forward towards the independent scene to get their fill. 5 out of 10 dumpsters having people. This has been the Horror Deconstruction.